All right, thanks very much, V. Let's quickly just get a response from the IEC now. There have been mixed reactions to President Cyril Ramaphosa signing into law the Electoral Amendment Bill of 2022, with the Independent Electoral Commission welcoming the assent to the Electoral Amendment Bill, while the New Nation movement, as you heard, says that amended Electoral Act will create additional barriers and obstacles for citizens to be legitimately represented by leaders of their choice. So the amended Electoral Act makes way for the inclusion and nomination of independent candidates as contestants to elections in the National Assembly and provincial legislatures, with a quote of 1 seat per candidate applied. The measures stipulated by the Amendment Act also include the obligation for independent candidates to abide by the Electoral Code of Conduct, and that the Minister of Home Affairs establishes the Electoral Reform Consultation Panel within 4 months of gazetting the amendments. So to tell us what this means for the country's 2024 elections, we've got Sy Mamabolo, who is the IEC's Chief Executive Officer. Sy, thanks again. Thanks for being with us this morning.
No, thank you very much, and greetings to your viewers. Indeed, we do welcome the assent of the Act now. We believe that it creates certainty in the planning framework, and we are quite happy that at least we can plan on the basis of some form, a firm rather, legislative framework.
Yeah, and I suppose this. I know you've been under pressure, and I know that this has put a lot of issues onto your plate that perhaps you didn't formally have. But let's now ask you the question: does the Amendment Electoral Act put pressure on your preparations for the 2024 elections, or should I say, extra pressure?
It does place upon us additional responsibility. There can be no doubt about that. We've got to print more ballots now than was previously the case, precisely because in relation to the elections of the National Assembly, we now have 2 ballots when we previously had 1. And also we do anticipate that we will have more contestants on the ballot. And that raises the possibility that for the first time we may have a 2-column ballot paper, something that we never had before in the country. Yeah. It does raise the need for greater voter education program, so that every single citizen who goes to the voting station on election day can fully understand the implication of their vote in relation to everybody who is on the ballot paper. So those are additional responsibilities and pressure points, but I think we have the possibility to do them as well as we can.
Indeed. And obviously that voter education is of vital importance, because it, I imagine, is going to look different to what we are used to. But some of the implications you stated include rewriting the candidate nomination system to facilitate the participation of these independent candidates and unrepresented political parties together with a portal to enable candidates to capture the details of voters who support their candidature. The timeframes that we're talking about here, Sy, how long are you giving yourselves to complete this? Do you think you'll be able to do this before the elections?
Well, we started doing that work even on the basis of an unsigned bill. So we did it at risk, because we realized that waiting was going to lead to a situation where we ran out of time. So that work has commenced already in December last year. And we hope that the candidate nomination system, the result system, will be ready by the end of this year, in time for elections next year. Barring a major catastrophe, we should be in a position to have those systems done, tested, and audited where that is required.
Yeah. So just, we talk about a major catastrophe happening in order to do to not allow elections to go ahead. But we just spoke to the New Nation movement, and not saying that whatever they're going to do is a major catastrophe, but they're certainly considering further legal action. If they do, what happens then? I mean, we saw how long this process took. What would be the case then?
Well, those who are minded to litigate, I think they should do so expeditiously, so that the judicial forum to which they go can process that issue and make a determination without undue delay. We can't speculate at this stage as to what our action would be, because we'll be informed. Our actions will be informed by whatever determination the judicial forum make. But one thing is clear, and that we all have to have an appreciation for, and that is any prolonged time of uncertainty will no doubt have a deleterious impact on the quality of an election that we have. Yeah. Because if changes are brought to bear on the process at the very last minute, our ability to get that to be understood across the system, from national office, provincial office, municipal office, right through to the voting station, gets impaired. So we need more time to be able to give the training that is required for every single voting officials, so that the standard of performance across all voting stations is the same. So any prolonged period of uncertainty unfortunately negates the possibility of well-run elections.
Okay, just continuing our conversation now with regard to our top story as well, and this has all got to do with the reaction, signing into bill to the Electoral Amendment Bill of signing into law of 2022, that Electoral Amendment Bill by the President yesterday. So we're talking to Sy Mamabolo. He, of course, is the IEC's Chief Executive Officer, and they are in charge of running elections for us here in the country. So let's just take a look at this now. And again, Sy, thank you very much for just staying on for a little bit. The Amended Act has made provision for a revised formula for the allocation of seats and their reallocation in the event of vacated seats. How will this affect the current seat allocations and for the incoming independent candidates for both national and provincial legislatures?
Well, the calculation formula for the allocation of seats will work pretty much the same way it did in previous elections, except that on this occasion, it will also include the votes cast in favor of independent candidates in the regional elections. Remember, our election of the National Assembly is on a basis of a two-tier system. The first tier are regional elections, in other words, electing members of the National Assembly in the regions, or if you want to put it differently, in the province. So they represent the province in the National Assembly. And then the second component of the electoral system for the National Assembly is to have a proportional representation compensatory ballot. So independent candidates will be on the regional ballots, and the formula will work such that they are given an equal footing with parties. The same quota of votes per seat will apply to independents as it does to political parties. For instance, if in Gauteng the regional quota is 90,000, so it means a party must get 90,000 votes before they get the first seat. Similarly, an independent candidate will have to get 90,000 votes before they get a seat in the National Assembly. And so it will apply throughout the country.
Let me ask you this, and I alluded to it earlier because this is a nice simple question that perhaps people would want to know. How different is that paper going to look when we go into a voting station? Because I know you're going to be having a registration drive, which is going to be on the 18th and 19th of November, which I imagine there are going to be a couple of changes there, which perhaps you can talk to as well. But at the same time, the ballot paper that we're looking at, is it going to be substantially different to what we know?
There's a high likelihood that the ballot paper, as we've historically known it to be, may have a different feel to it. And precisely that is intended to accommodate an increased number of electoral contestants, as well as the independents as well. You'd recall that for the National Assembly in 2019, we had 54 political parties. We don't see that number going down. In fact, our projections are that we probably will have about 70 or so, including independent candidates. So for the first time, we sit with the possibility of having a two-column ballot paper. Historically, since 1994, we've had a single-column ballot paper. Now we are confronted with the prospect of a two-column ballot paper. The implication of that is manifold. One, the period it will take to print that ballot increases. Two, we now need to procure more ballot boxes to accommodate this big ballot paper that is likely to eventuate. Thirdly, the surface area of the voting compartment where you place your ballot to market would have to increase, because you don't want it to be falling over the surface area of the voting compartment. So those are some of the logistical considerations that are currently being made. But we accept that to be the consequence of a change in the system of political representation for the country.
Just to talk to us about that registration drive. Even I'm forgetting what I'm asking you. The registration drive that you're going to be having, still those dedicated dates. I know that you'd sort of earmarked it for in November sometime. Is that going to go ahead still as planned? And will it be any changes to that? Is there any changes that we need to know about that?
No, the Commission yesterday announced its intention to conduct a national voter registration weekend on the 18th and 19th, and that is a firm date. Unless there's a major catastrophe, we're proceeding on that date for the national registration weekend. We open approximately 24,000 voting stations. We allow everybody to come register, for everybody to check the correctness of their details, and for those that have moved houses, to change their registration. So it's a firm date on our part. Unless really there's a major catastrophe, we're proceeding on that date.
All right, let's leave it there, Sy. I know we're going to be talking to you so much ahead of these elections, and I know you've got a lot of work ahead of you to ensure that these elections go off smoothly next year. The 2024 elections, big ones coming up. But as you heard, that Electoral Amendment Bill has now been signed into law by the President, and there's lots of changes that are taking place. But some still not happy with that law that's now been signed in. Sy Mamabolo, of course, is the IEC's Chief Executive Officer.